Running the floor, Embiid stuffs it. Harden for three. James Harden with his second triple.
Another episode of the Pick Swap podcast. It is me and Sean Barnard as usual. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, man. Summer League in full swing. I've been loving the low-quality basketball, just kind of street runs of NBA guys. So I kind of enjoy watching it. The double overtime or the overtime sudden death eliminations pretty fun. There's been some cool storylines watching, so I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. I love seeing the young guys. The first number 2, 3, 4. Always fun to see them figure it out as they go along. This Summer League has been fun. You really kind of see them. Watching these games, it's like, wow, these guys really are just playing pickup. Just like some of the best basketball players in the world just playing pickup. So we got a lot to cover today. We're going to talk a lot about the Summer League, what we've seen, what we've liked, what we haven't liked, who we've liked the most. And then later on, we'll talk a little bit about the Harden contract and a few other things that come along with that as well. So let's jump right into this Summer League action. So kind of just run me back. What's been the best thing that you've seen so far in this Summer League?
I'll give Bball Paul the shout out right away. I think it's interesting with Bball Paul because I think we've obviously been guys in favor of him, and he's been a player that I've enjoyed and been calling for more minutes for quite some time. I think somebody with a more negative view of him could still look at it as not great because he didn't look much more refined. He still has pure madness on the court. But what really encouraged me is he just made his presence felt, and he was, in my opinion, very clearly the best player on the Sixers Summer League roster. And I think that's awesome to see. It's you saw exactly what you were hoping for out of him in this, that in Salt Lake City, he made his presence felt. He made his impact felt. I think it's the right decision not playing him in Las Vegas. We know what the Sixers know what they have in Bball Paul. It's time to give other guys a chance. But to me, I was encouraged by him just kind of going in, doing what he was supposed to do, and making his presence felt.
Yeah, I think I'm right along with you there. I was listening to the Ringer podcast with Kevin O'Connor, and they even shouted Paul Reed out. They had all the players that really are playing in Summer League but really shouldn't be. It was like him, Josh Giddey, and a couple other guys that they had talked about. And I think Paul Reed does fall in that category. We're able to take him out and let him go off to the side and watch for the sidelines and do his thing over there. But Paul is... I don't know that he'll ever be less than chaos on the court. I think that's his calling card. That's what you want from him. And something that he brings to the table that not a lot of other players do. His motor's insane. We saw a really good Isaiah Joe game the other night. Seen some flashes from Jaden Springer. Got to see some Trevelin Queen as well. I wanted to, he had a huge night the other night, and I think he deserves minutes. What do you think?
The Isaiah Joe you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he for the first time, I think, felt the pressure of just kind of his path through the NBA was not as clear and as promising as I think it once was. And I think he responded well to that. I think he's putting on a statement. We obviously saw the game winner, which was awesome, that he totally got fouled on. That they called it. I think he's made some real strides as a movement shooter, which is something notable to add to his game and something the Sixers roster is missing. So the way they kind of have been running a lot of plays with him coming off screens and pin downs and just having catch and shoot on the run opportunities has been something that's been effective. And that's an aspect that could immediately translate to the Sixers roster. So to me, I've been encouraged by Isaiah Joe. He's much more of a kind of combo guard than he is a wing, which once again, it's a weird, he's always just in my head as a wing shooter. And that's really not his skill set. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit. He can do a little bit of guard things. And I think that's important to note. I also have been impressed defensively with him. I thought he's done a good job when he's been switched on to bigger guys, which has been very appealing to me. Isaiah Joe deserves a chance. I think he's doing everything in his power to make that happen, and I've been real encouraged with what I've seen from him too.
I was going to mention the defense. I think we've talked about it before, and I think very early on, his rookie season, it was the frame. He doesn't have to bang with some guys, guard up in the lineup. But it seems like he's found a way to do that. He's lengthy, he's athletic, and he's savvy. He's smart defensively in a way that allows him to utilize his length and his speed and agility to create, some sort of improved mismatch offensively. But like you pointed out, I think it's coming more evident that he's definitely not a three. He's a little bit around 6'4", a little bit under 6'4". But the way that he plays, I think he's almost a clear cut two. In the way that he shoots and the way he plays, I think it's a two. But again, it's a guy that we talked about definitely get in later on, because I think they're in a kind of an interesting spot in terms of the roster constructed as it is right now. But with Isaiah Joe, that this team needs, he's a floor spacer. He's not afraid to shoot. He was 7 of 9 the other night, something ridiculous like that. So he's going to chuck. I think entering his 3rd season, this should be. Do you think it's a make or break year for him?
I wouldn't go that far. I think it's weird. Like, I'm still unsure how this roster shakes out. I think there's like a real conversation that's probably going on about him versus Furkan, and Isaiah Joe is obviously on the non-guaranteed deal. So I think he's a name that kind of pointed toward a potential exit guy, but I think his play has kind of swung that back the other way. And frankly, I would rather have a chance to truly get a look at what he can do rather than kind of, we know what we got with Furkan. And we're going to get into a little bit of money stuff later, but I think a 2-for-1 trade, even if it is, I think it's most likely a Matisse Thybulle and Furkan Korkmaz for another role player. That kind of deal to keep him on roster, I think is worth it. And I've seen enough personally that I just want to see what he can really do on an NBA level. He's got a cool skill set. He deserves a real chance this year. He really hasn't gotten one yet for extended minutes outside of the COVID stretch where he kind of was forced to play it, and that he played very well in his rookie. So I would like to see it this year from him.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's weird to kind of boil it down to his play in a summer league, whether or not he'll be featured in his roster. But that's the way the NBA is. I think he kind of, like you said, he felt the pressure of going into your 3rd year as a guy like him, and playing in summer league. You have to show out, right? Like, you have to be one of the, if not the best player on the court. You see that from Paul Reed. We've seen it from Isaiah Joe. Those guys are looked to the best players on the floor because they should be more experienced and just frankly better than most of these other guys, aside from the top picks and the guys that, got drafted high this year and last year that are still making their way. But, a guy like him, he was drafted late. He's still making his way. He should be one of the better players on the court. And I think he's shown that. So, we've always liked Isaiah Joe. We've always been Isaiah Joe guys. So I'm with this stint that he showed in the summer league, he can break through a little bit. I do want to ask you, Jaden Springer. So it's been up and down. What do you think?
I've been a very pro Jaden Springer guy. He's so young. Like, it's so hard. Think about like the rookies in this class. Most of this rookie class is still older than him. He was a fresh 18 when the Sixers drafted him. He's just turned 19 pretty much. He's a guy like that. It was known he was a project. I've been a little bit discouraged just from the shot, I guess, is the biggest thing. Like, he still looks hesitant to pull the trigger. You can see like the tool was so clearly there. Like, he had the block against the Grizzlies to win the game, which was just an eye-popping play and something that was crazy. He's defensively, he's very good. He can defend at an NBA level right now for sure. But I have some concerns about positionally what he can do at the NBA level. I don't see like a clean skill set. The handle is concerning to me. He doesn't have an NBA handle. He's very loose with it. I don't see him as, he's got to use his physicality to get downhill well, but like, he just coughs it up too much. He's got to be more willing with the shot. He does a whole bunch of like pumping and stuttering and just doesn't look comfortable. He's still a ways away. He's not going to be ready for rotational minutes this year in the way that I hope, but I still do have hope from him in the long term.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page with him. I like Jaden Springer. The athletic ability is there, man. It is that's a skill. We talk about Tyrese Maxey. We talk about the speed being a tangible skill. That vertical ability, the ability to get up and down the floor, and to jump up with 2 hands and pull it down, and just I think that's the kind of stuff that keeps you coming back with Jaden Springer. Is a guy like that. You can't look away when he's doing stuff like that. He's getting up and down in transition. He's fun. But yeah, again, he's 19. Like, Chet older than him. Jabari Smith is older. Like, all these guys are a bit older than him. So I think with him, and in the same breath, I think it's okay to not love what you've seen so far, because it's still very raw. But getting a little bit of perspective, he's been a pro for a little bit over a year, like almost exactly a year, and he went from 18 to 19. We've seen a little bit of improvement, and really, I think most people haven't gotten the chance to see Jaden Springer play that much. A guy like you that's invested and watches Bluecoats games and goes there, a little bit, you can see what Jaden Springer is, and maybe what he has or has not improved on. But I think other people are kind of, naturally jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah, and he has gotten better. Like, I think that's important to note. He's a better player this year's summer league than he was last year, which those are steps in the right direction that we're looking for. And we've talked a lot about kind of the Bball Paul pathway, and I was real critical of Doc for not tossing him in for rotational minutes because I think that was the best course for his development. I don't feel the same way about Jaden Springer. He's a guy I think the more basketball, the better for him. I have no issue with him clocking major G League minutes this year and continuing to develop in the way that he is. I think he's a guy that just needs to continue to play more and more basketball, learn himself, learn his game, and improve that way. So he's not a guy I see getting better as kind of keeping at the end of the bench and toss in for like maybe 3 minutes here or there. I want him to play a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea too, especially being featured in the offense, and kind of being forced in it, like, evident, and becomes more of an issue with, if you get thrown into an NBA lineup and the guys next to you are James Harden and Joel Embiid and whoever that may be, the likelihood that he's willing to let it fly much lower. So I think giving him the opportunity to go be a major part of the offense and figure out how to become sufficient on that end with the Bluecoats this season is probably the best course of action. Another guy that's played a lot of minutes with the Bluecoats, but is kind of, maybe on the fringe here of the rotation as well, as Charles Bassey. So how have you been feeling about Charles Bassey?
I think this is a setting. He's a guy that does not benefit kind of the free flowing, just kind of street ball way that like summer league is. That's not really him, and I think he's kind of looked the worst as a result of that. He's a guy that he is so dependent on what like his point guard is and the guy creating for him. There's been a couple nice flashes where Trevelin Queen's found him on lobs or pick and rolls and piecing that together. But like realistically, he's a guy, he's never going to be able to get his own offense. He's going to be a lob threat. He's got to kind of adjust to that. Like he should be following the Clint Capella model, and like that's got to be his game. He's got to be a screener and roller, catching lobs, getting putbacks. I also have been a little disappointed with what I've seen defensively with him. He just hasn't been like this monstrous rim protector that I really like want him to be. He's had a couple of nice flashes, had a couple blocks, but like guys drive at him without fear in a way that like I would like to see it. Like he's got a monstrous frame. He's an NBA body. He's a legitimate big man. Like you have to be altering more shots than he blocks, and I don't feel that's the case. Like there's when we talk about Embiid all the time, how there's guys that like he just alters shots by his presence, by him stepping out and doing like that. Bassey doesn't do that, and he'll catch some blocks, but there's guys that they attack him pretty easily, and I would like to see more on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because of just how athletic he is, and to see the physical ability that he has to not be like a ferocious intimidator. Like a lot of guys that are 7 feet and have that ability do become something you can grow into, I'm sure. And like you said, I think it's really situation his ability, which I don't want to say low skilled, but definitely not like a fancy footwork, back to the basket, post up guy. As a big man like that, it's kind of to be expected, though, to be reliant on your guards to make the right plays and to make the right reads. So I think there's room for him to, without mass improvement, to still be a contributor. It looks like that's probably not in the plans this year, but I would like to see his improvement a little bit more out there. It just hasn't been from what we've seen so far in the summer league.
Yeah, he has had a couple flashes of like he knocked down a mid-range jumper the other day. He had a 3-pointer. There is kind of like you can see him like he's not. I'm not questioning if he's working at it. I'm seeing a little bit of progress, but I don't know. He's an interesting fit. It wouldn't shock me. Like I know people have talked all the time about like I think James Harden could make him look way better than he looks right now. I think like a guy like that who can just read and make the right passes, make the right lobs, time everything correctly, he could look tremendous alongside Harden. So I think there are still going to be people calling for him to get the backup big minutes. I think that will be somewhat of a competition going into camp. But I really think Bball Paul is head and shoulders better than Charles Bassey at this point. And I think I have him pretty like a significant gap between the two. I think Bball Paul can do all the lob catching that Bassey can and plenty more to his game. So to me, it's not close in the backup center competition, although I understand kind of the fit aspect.
Yeah, I think I think that's definitely it's not a hot take. In that sense, I think Paul Reed definitely is. But Paul Reed's position is still in question. It's still kind of a TBD. He's
Sure.
kind of that mix of a 4 and a 5, whereas Bassey is surely a 5 that does certain things well. He is the prototype. When you said those guys succeed alongside James Harden just naturally. He does everything that they need him to do. So I think Bassey, I don't know. I think it'll depend. I want to see how the rest of this offseason plays out with a little bit. Interested to see where that goes. Obviously, we'll have later, but Bassey is almost a free option there at that point. So curious to see if he cracks the lineup at all. But like, I don't know if he's a young guy like that. You have to be making flashes and splashes and showing that, especially for a coach like Doc. But again, they're seeing more of him than we are. So a decision to be made in-house. Who else has stuck out to you either way, good or bad, with the Sixers so far?
I thought Charlie Brown Jr. has been good. I've been impressed with him. Pretty much the same Charlie Brown Jr. that we've been seeing, but he makes his presence felt like he's doing his thing. He's active. He's picked up full court a couple times, which I really liked. He picked a guy's pocket in the backcourt, ended with a dunk. He's done a lot of kind of those little things. Shot the 3-point all right. He was 2 for 3 last game. He's been solid. I've been happy with Charlie Brown Jr. I think he's a guy who, like, when you look at like the scheme of things, there's kind of, you can tell where there's some guys who just simply don't have the NBA mold or NBA cut or just quite that level of talent. I think he flashes enough to be a little bit above that, which to me is encouraging. I like Charlie Brown Jr. I'm rooting for him. The 3-point shot is just going to straight up be his swing skill for whether he can crack an NBA roster or not. If he can connect on 3-pointers at like a 36% or above rate, I think he'll stick in the league. If he can't, unfortunately, I don't think he can. But defensively, I think he's very good. I like the way he cuts. I love his energy, love his activity, good hands, been active. Charlie Brown Jr. has been solid. Trevelin Queen, I'll talk about. I'm still not getting down off the Trevelin Queen castle or whatever we want to call it. But I think he's better than what he's shown, but he's had a couple of nice flashes, knocked down a couple 3-pointers, he's impressed me as a playmaker. He's tried to do too much at times. He's had a couple turnovers, like trying to squeeze it in windows, that kind of thing. But I think he's been solid. He's shown enough positive flashes that I've been encouraged by him. Aminu Muhammad, I also like a lot. Another guy I don't think I see it. I don't see him as an NBA fit right away. He's still super young, only spent 1 year in Georgetown, really has no offensive game right now, but I love his activity. Malik Ellis, I like. Any other guys that are sticking out to you?
Michael Foster?
Sure, yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right.
So I mean, I want to go back to Trevelin Queen really quick, because he seems like a guy, the way that he plays is just like everything in your face, like wants to be aggressive and all the time, which you love. Part of that, you definitely love that. I want to see him dunk on people and yell at people. Like, I want that. I think as bad as he does, but he wants it so bad that he'll force it. So like it's finding that balance there. This team turns the ball over like it's part of the scheme. They turned the ball over like 23 times the other night, like something insane. So it's cutting down on that. But I think in a trimmed role, you're looking at a guy like that. He can catch fire. He's one of those guys that can and will at times catch fire. So I like Trevelin Queen, and for the same reasons that you like Trevelin Queen. For Foster, I loved it the other night. Has been taken off the floor, taken off this role. Great. What do you think? So is this deal that he signed just kind of a preseason deal, like an Exhibit 10?
Yeah, it hasn't been officially announced, but I'm pretty confident it's an Exhibit 10 deal, which is essentially like a high-priced G League contract with like the pathway to the NBA is kind of the hope of it. So he'll get a training camp opportunity. I think he'll clock full season with the Bluecoats. I think he's a good guy to have like in your developmental plan. See what he can be. There's a lot of nice flashes in his game. He was a productive guy with the Ignite last year. Like he was a 16-10 guy as the number 7 recruit coming out of last year's high school class. 16-10 with the G League Ignite at a relatively high level. Defensively was my biggest concern with him, like going into draft time. And He's impressed me in that area. So I think he's taken his biggest weakness. He's had a couple really nice blocks.
Yeah.
He hasn't played as much as kind of I would have hoped. I would like for him to get a little bit more run. I mean, they still got 2 more games in Vegas, so hopefully in them. But yeah, I've liked what I've seen with Michael Foster. I think he's a good guy to have around and see what he turns into.
Yeah, we've talked about the G League Ignite so much. We mentioned it a lot going into the draft, and what guys do in that sense. Being a 16-10 guy with the G League Ignite, there's something to be said about that. There's a skill level that you have to surpass to be able to do that at that level, at the pro level, at that young of an age. I like it a lot. I really like what I've seen from him so far. And again, it's another guy. It's just a chip. You're just building a little bit more. One of these guys will end up being better than what they were supposed to be eventually. Like, what you just these guys, whether it's Springer, Joe, Bassey, Foster, one of these guys is going to end up being a rotational piece and a solid piece to a good team. That is what you're looking for. I think they've done a really good job so far. And what we've seen is these guys do have pieces. Charlie Brown, one of these guys has to break out into one skill that's currently a weakness. I think Foster has a chance to be, a player that can build upon the skills that we've seen so far. So I really like it.
Yeah, definitely. If I want to swing into my little bit underwhelmed category, Julian Champagnie, I've been disappointed in what he's been. A guy whose rep is like as a shooter, and that's kind of what he was at St. John's. He had a dip in his shooting percentage his senior year, and he just looks a little gun shy out there. I know he shot the ball poorly to start. It's like 0 for 6 from 3 on one of the opening games. But if that's like you kind of playing for your job, you got to go down shooting, man. Like you got to keep doing it. I haven't seen much on either side of the ball, so I've been disappointed by him. Miles Powell, I haven't seen much of, and this he's a jacker. He's a guy who comes in and does his thing, but unfortunately, I don't see much added to his game. He kind of is what he is, and he's a fun to watch player, but a guy I just don't see much of an NBA role for. Grant Riller, I feel the same way. Unfortunately, I thought he showed some real nice flashes in the opening game, and then played very poorly in the second game. And I don't think he's done much to differentiate himself one way or another. So those 3, I guess, would be somewhat disappointing. Philip what do you think of Petrovic, or however you say his last name?
Petrusev.
Thank you.
I haven't. So I didn't get to see him play actually. The game that he did play, I didn't get to see him. So I can't speak too much on him. But to go, I think Riller, it's disappointing. We talked a lot about Riller going into the draft.
Yeah.
He's older and he just doesn't stand out. And kind of what we talked about with Isaiah Joe being an older guy, like you have to at least stand out a little bit to garner some of that attention. He just there's plays. I think him and Powell kind of fit the same mold where it's like they can do some stuff that makes you like look around, like pop your eyes a little bit. Powell had a really nice step back the other day, and Riller can do some with the ball that's impressive, but they're just consistent enough in their scoring efforts in that way as well. So I definitely agree with you there. Who is a Champagnie? Yeah, just like a lot of emptiness with Champagnie. Like it's just one of the one that you want him to do so much. The body's there, the way that he looks, you're like, okay, this guy can hoop a little. It just hasn't been as out there with him either. But how do you feel about Petrusev?
Once again, I feel similar to how I did last summer league. Like the rep on this guy coming out of Gonzaga, and then he was the Adriatic League MVP overseas. He's done a lot of impressive stuff overseas, but the rep was like how talented he is offensively, and like how he can. I see like nothing offensively, and he's made a lot of positive impressions on the defensive end. I thought he rotates well. I think he's in the right spot. Good shot blocking instincts, but like offensively, I don't see really much of anything. He had a nice pass yesterday. Found a cutter that was real nice, but like I don't, unfortunately, like I haven't seen much more than I did last summer league. I thought he was pretty clearly not ready last summer league, and I still think that's the case. I know Keith Pompey has written 1 or 2 articles now basically about how determined he is to make this Sixers roster, and unfortunately, I don't think he's there yet. And I just would like to see more, and there doesn't seem to be that much offensively.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, that the bigs room with the Sixers is pretty packed right now, and a lot of guys that can dip their toes in and right back out. When you talk about like with Paul Reed to PJ Tucker, so the 4s and 5s are kind of taken care of, and even Niang. But yeah, Petrusev, from what what I saw last summer was like going back to what you said is like I thought he was going to be handling the ball, shooting. Like that was the impression that I got from what I heard about him. But I'll be interested to see. I'll be able to watch the next game and hopefully see what he's got in store for that game. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear, when you hear the folk tales, especially about these European guys that you never get to see about what they might be, and then it's just completely opposite. You almost assume the European guys are going to be less effective defensively, but be able to be creative and a little bit quirky offensively. It's almost the opposite. We've seen a strong defender, a rim protector, with a little bit less offensively. So interesting with him.
Yeah, last guy I'll give a shout out to is Cassius Winston. I think he's awesome. I really like him. I wouldn't mind giving him an opportunity. He's impressed me throughout. He's very just solid. Like he's just gonna do his job, does his thing. He's run the offense pretty well. He's got a nice little floater, very good feel of the game. A guy that's been disappointing, kind of not to see him get any really NBA buzz throughout his career so far. Michigan State standout. He was awesome in college too. I like Cassius Winston a lot. I've been excited with what he's brought to the team too.
He's as advertised. So almost the opposite of Petrusev, where it's like you're going to get a solid point guard, a guy that's going to know your system. He's going to do the right things. He's going to make the right plays, the right passes. Pass first for sure. Isn't looking to score as often. But yeah, I like Winston too. It's just the skill level. Does it work? Does it make it to the NBA level? Still to be determined, I think, with him. But a guy I think you like. I think if that's your point guard for like your G League team, you're happy. I think he brings the camaraderie, being a 4-year guy at Michigan State. You like the vibes from a guy like Cassius Winston. I think he's worth keeping around in some sort of capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think his ceiling is very high. I think he's pretty much is what he is, but I think he's solid. I do like him. I don't think he finds a way onto the Sixers roster, possibly the Blue Coats. I would love him there. I would love if there is a chance for a spot to open up and something happens. Like he's a guy that's worth sticking around and giving him a chance. But I do like Cassius Winston, so I've been impressed.
Yeah, for sure. So do you want to get into this? We haven't spoken yet, you and I, specifically about this Harden deal yet. So I would like to talk about it and what that, not even necessarily about the contract itself, but more about the next steps. What happens next? The ability to continue building this roster, basically only because Harden took this pay cut. And I have a simple question for you, like a straightforward, cut and dry. This Sixers team, I've flipped on this so many times. It's so tough. This Sixers team for the last 5 years of our lives, they've been good, solid, and top heavy. They're now good and solid, but they have a lot of guys that can play. Do you think that they're going to use this extra cash? What is it? They have a space for 1 or 2 vet minimums?
Yeah, the roster space is kind of the bigger concern right now. They just don't have that, but they definitely are finessing with a little wiggle room here.
So they have some money to play with here. There's some guys out there that I'm sure they have on their radar that are in that pay range. Adding 1 or 2 more players, and if that does mean, moving on from one of the younger guys or, letting them play in the G League, not taking up a roster spot. Do you think Daryl Morey is looking at what everyone's saying and saying, this is no depth. This team is the bench has killed them for years. Even the 2 years that he's been here, the bench has killed them. And he's now looking at it kind of saying like, look at me now. I have 15 guys that can play. Do you think that's part of it? Or do you think that there is something that's going to come up? Because they do have like 18 guys that are potentially on this roster.
Yeah, I don't think Daryl Morey's done by any means. I think first off, the Harden contract has not even been officially announced yet. We've heard all it's going to be 15 mil short of the 47. It's going to be 1+1 deal or a 2-year deal. There's been like all the little reports and we can kind of piece together, but there hasn't been an official number set in stone. I think that has a ton to do with like Daryl Morey not being done. And there's very clearly like a great amount of trust between Morey and Harden, which I think is very cool. PJ Tucker is not here right now if it isn't for Harden willing to swallow that cash. I think the trade-off was pretty much like, you take this pay cut, I'll get your boys, and they both follow through with it. So I don't think Harden's going to officially sign on until they're not going to handcuff themselves by like needing a little extra wiggle room that Harden can't take. And it will obviously be figured out in the end. Harden's going to be doing just fine on money by the end. They will backload it, do whatever to make it work. But I think it's cool that they're working together on this. I think the bench has definitely been the focus. And as much as people like complain about like the Rockets part 2, it's like these are guys that are useful, that fit what the Sixers need, and that are complementary to both Embiid and Harden. So I've been happy with what Morey's done so far, and I don't think he's done by any means.
Okay, that's a good. I think that was where I expected you to be on it. I'm definitely there as well. I think I've been really happy with the way this offseason has played out so far. Just like it's conscious and logical steps in the right direction. And I think that's something that the Sixers have lacked for so long. It's been sporadic. It's been like, oh shit, how Horford's available, we'll pick him. Or it's just like kind of just like, oh, something happens and we have to react and do something. Whereas Morey is seeing the options here, seeing the holes in this roster, and has done a good job filling them out. And it seems to be, from what we've seen, he's putting some trust in some younger guys. He's going to kind of force Doc's hand to play them in a certain capacity, whether that's Paul Reed, Bassey, whoever it may be. But looking down the line, they just have a lot of guys that are capable of being the players that they needed last year. Like when you talk about Daniel House, we didn't even get to talk about Daniel House when we last did a podcast. He's a guy that just can play. D'Anthony Melton can just play. PJ Tucker can just play. Like he's done a really good job building it up. But there's some money still there, and like you said, there hasn't been a set number with Harden yet. For right now, it's 2 years, $64 million is the reported one, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
$15 million pay cut, man. I haven't been able to speak on it yet. I just want to say, fantastic. Shout out to James Harden. That is an OG move for real. He needs to be put in a different category right now. Not in terms of, as a Sixer, but just as a player. His commitment to winning is now being put on display. I was dying laughing the other day. For whatever reason, I decided to put on the rights to Ricky Sanchez. I had a long drive to Richmond, Virginia this weekend. And somehow Spike Eskimo was trying to make it seem like it was selfish. And twist it in a way where it was like, oh, well, he wasn't guaranteed to make all this money if he did the 1 year option. He wasn't guaranteed to get another contract after that. I'm like, James Harden, let's start there. He would have got a contract with anybody. Any team would pay him. Let's be honest. He decided to stay here on a cheaper deal to play here and play with Joel Embiid, play for Daryl Morey, play for Doc Rivers, tongue in cheek there. But regardless, incredible move by him. We are all, I think, forever indebted in a way, depending on how this season plays out. But fantastic, lovely, commendable move by James Harden right there. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so first off, like, I agree. He needs his flowers. He should be celebrated for this. At the end of the day, it still comes down to like how much he has left in the tank. Like,
true.
This is a great way to start off on a kind of a clean slate, good feeling. If he still has no burst, if he's still the hamstrings bothering him, or it's still just not quite, if his handle's a little off and he's not the player and we're getting the same James Harden we got last year or even a little worse, then I don't think it's going to be as rewarding because we're still paying this guy $32 million, and that's still a handsome contract for the NBA. The way this deal is structured, it's for sure like it's helping both sides. It truly is kind of a collaborative deal because the Sixers are working at this out with James Harden. This is still a little bit of him betting on himself, which I think is an awesome sign for the Sixers, that you want James Harden to come in ready to make a statement that he can still be that high caliber player. I also think it shows his commitment toward winning. It shows like this is where his mind's at this state in his career, that he wants this. And it is so easy that if the goal was just to bet on himself, he very easily could have bet on himself while making $47 million this year. Like he very easily could have opted in for the 1 year deal for $47 million and said like, I'm going to prove I'm still worth that while still making that money. So to kind of make the same gamble and collecting $15 million less, I think is very cool. It also is awesome to just continue watching the Nets blow up kind of in the midst of all this. So it's been a good week for the Harden brand for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for it, and seeing the video of him working out with Sam Cassell and Tyrese Maxey, and the way Sam Cassell interacted with them was awesome. Gotta love that. But I think like, I don't know, that's great. That's just like, you love to see it. Yeah. And with a guy like Harden, who has this reputation, not caring, of doing whatever. I think he's kind of turning the tides on that. Again, it is contingent on his ability this upcoming season.
Right.
But from everything we've seen, we are prisoners of this summer workout movement. It's hurt us in the past, so I know a lot of us are a little bit hesitant to buy into the James Harden summer workouts. We've seen it happen before. These feel a little bit different. I feel like there's a proven track record with Harden. So hopefully coming into the season, we're seeing a nice and healthy and physically strong and fast James Harden. We can all pray for that. There's a couple of guys, it's hard right now because, again, we have no idea what the plan is for Morey right now. It still seems like he's cooking a little bit. Eric Gordon still isn't off the table, all these things. They have some money to play with. Is there anyone specifically that you're looking at right now who's still a free agent? Markieff Morris even said on his Twitter, I've been trying to come back, or, trying to come to Philly. How do you feel about him or anyone else that's potentially available right now?
Yeah, for the most part, I think I'm happy with what we got. I'm kind of the mindset, like, I don't think you should go into the season like fully handcuffed with you having like 0 available moves. Like, I like the mindset of just seeing what this Sixers team has and maybe looking for that missing piece at the deadline or in the middle of the season when you can kind of see what they really are missing. Like, maybe Bball Paul isn't quite it, and there actually does need to be a backup center adjustment. I think he will be ready. I have confidence in that. Maybe they're a little short on wing depth, that Daniel House really isn't cutting it to be a rotational player, which I think is possible. He's got it. While he played very well for the Jazz and ended up winning like significant minutes towards the end of the season, he still was a guy that was on a 10-day contract for a brief period of last year. So it's like, it's not like this is a can't miss guy, and there's still a little bit of risk there. And, their injuries can always happen. So I think like I'm of the mindset I would rather like not go all in on a free agent right now. I think the core, I think you make one trade, like we've talked about with the Thibault and Furkan, for whether it's like a Kobe White or some sort of two-way role player across the league that you can find to round out for a 15 roster. And then I think keep a little pieces that you can work with going into the year if need be.
Reggie Bullock, he's already been a Sixer on his Instagram story.
I would love it.
I saw a tweet I was laughing at the other day. It was like, Reggie Bullock literally played for Doc Rivers in LA his first 2 seasons and didn't see the court at all. Which makes sense. A young wing playing for Doc Rivers, no chance, never stood a chance. But I think there are options out there like that. I wonder if the idea is to go get Eric Gordon. Who knows? Maybe it is. But I think they're in a good spot right now. And like I said, I've been happy with the product that they've put together. I'm itching to get this season started, man. It's insane how fast the way that we can all recover from the heartbreak inflict on us. But man, I'm super excited to see what they have together right now. Seeing Tyrese Maxey and all those guys together at the Summer League just gets me going a little bit. I'm excited for them to get together because I think they have put together a pretty solid team so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. Like, as much as we put so much pressure on last year, and for good reason, it's hard to make a team click in such little time. So I'm very excited to see this core of James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, another year into his development, all the complementary pieces that are now surrounding. I'm very excited to see what this team can look like this year, and we're moving in the right direction for sure. I don't think Tobias is going anywhere. I know I was kind of really of that mindset going into the offseason, but I think if it was going to happen, it would have already. I think we're kind of going to be going in with what we got, with the exception of like 1 or 2 more moves to round out the bottom of the roster, and I'm content with that.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm. There was a point in time this last season where I was on this podcast saying Tobias needs to go. He needs to be gone. I think we've gone through this roller coaster like 2 or 3 times with Tobias. It goes like, he's good. People don't like him, but he's good. Oh, he sucks. He's not good enough. He's overpaid, all this stuff. I think Tobias is going to be a good, solid contributing piece next season. I think it's good to have him back. But I'm in the same mindset as you. I think there could be another move or two pending something happening. I know a lot of the league is kind of waiting on the KD and Kyrie. That whole situation. You kind of have a potential Donovan Mitchell situation. All these things. And this is the nature of the NBA offseason. So to be expected with that as well. But I'm happy with it right now. And I think 1 or 2, like having a complete team with the top of the roster being, Harden, Maxey, Embiid, Harris, Tucker. Like, having a really solid bench behind that group is something I'm looking at and loving. Like, just loving the idea of that. You get a couple guys that are dogs. If you have, a Morris twin on your team, there's undoubtedly going to be some fights, and I'm okay with that. If there's a guy that can contribute and get in a fight, even better. We wasn't contributing very much, but he brought the attitude, and that's why everyone liked. That could potentially contribute. And also, when you talk about PJ Tucker as well, a guy that's going to be a fan favorite around here, I'm excited for it. I think they're not just building a conducive roster with the way that they play, but what they bring to the table, their attitude, their effort, the way that they play. I'm really excited for what they've put together so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Things have definitely kind of taken a turn in the right direction in the Sixers world.
Yeah.
So excited. I've enjoyed how kind of calculated everything has been. There's never one like cure all, solve all move. So it's been cool to watch all the little pieces be stacked on top of each other and start to build a complete roster. And I'm happy with everything. Like D'Anthony Melton, once again, I just want to throw his name out there so you don't forget him. But all these guys, I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have anything else. I'm not sure if you're itching to talk about anything else. So the Sixers do. When do they play? Tomorrow night?
Yeah, play Nuggets, I'm pretty sure.
Cool. See Colin Gillespie. Anyway, unimportant. Yeah. But Sixers play again tomorrow night, the Summer Sixers, as we like to call them. And then they have one more game in the Summer League before this season kind of not starts, obviously, but you start feeling the heat of the NBA season rolling up on you. And it's a lovely time of the year. The offseason can be as fun as the regular season, as we've seen. A lot of things happening, whether it be with the Sixers or otherwise. So a lot of things to pay attention to. So to keep up, you can follow Sean at Sean_Bernard1 on Twitter. You can follow me at JSbrain17. You can follow the pod at PickSwapPod. Follow us at PickSwap Media as well. Check out the TikTok. Make sure you are keeping up with us there. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you next week.